Welcome to Almost Grown Up. I'm your host, Lucie. And today I want to unpick a little bit of my current approach to summer and how I'm using it as a boost for playfulness, a boost for creativity, and a chance to actually explore properly and honestly some of the questions that I find really hard around play. So let's dive in. The house is a mess because I am preparing for a trip and to have my son at home with me for the next 6 weeks, which is kind of the background for today's episode, because I realized I'm heading into a proper summer holiday again. And in one way it's a summer holiday, in another way it's a very intense full-time job. But I wanted to try and approach it with some childlike joy, some sense of isn't there lots of magic in summer and the long days and the beautiful memories, and that idea that this is a chance for me to make great summer memories for me with my son, and hopefully to create some of those for my son, or create an environment for my son to make some of those. I had this sort of longing for this kind of teenage or a slightly older child, maybe me at 12 years old summers, where everything just extended and felt easy and fun and joyful and interesting. And I sort of felt wistful about maybe doing a bit of an analog summer. And I also wanted it to be inspiring and playful. And it felt like a lot, it felt like I was asking a lot from summer. But I sat down and thought, what am I really trying to get at here? And what it came down to was actually I really wanted to find a way to make this an opportunity for me to see in the space if I can bring more play in, and if I can tackle some of the questions around play that I've been having when I'm applying it in a practical sense. So for me, the questions that I kind of want to explore this summer, I have no answers to these, by the way. This podcast is not exploring answers to those questions, so that is a caveat. But it is the start of a journey to try and see what comes up when I ask these questions. And the first one is, how do I step into presence and playfulness, into that present playful space when I'm with my son, or with any children that I'm playing with? I have lots of children in my family to enjoy spending time with. So how do I kind of step into that space? How do I let myself play my way to new discoveries? Those kind of things that you don't actually know what part of your life they're going to be in or what you're going to discover, but this amplification of space and aha moments and inspiration for new projects and ideas, and just that kind of goodness of soaking up that comes, I think, from space and random connections and a lot of that good stuff. But I want to, ask myself that question of how can play help me here with these kind of new discoveries, this new inspiration, and how do I use play as a way to help me find what I love again? I had this realization this last weekend, actually, that I had a bit of space and time while my son was sleeping, and I was like, what do I enjoy doing? This is my space. What did I used to do with my weekends before I had a son to entertain during them? And I found it really hard to answer that question. And you might think that I'm someone that has a lot of interests, and I think I do, but actually tapping into what I like to do for enjoyment, for fun, felt quite difficult in that moment. So I want to explore a little bit of that. And today I just thought I would walk you through how I'm going to approach those questions and exploring those questions, and basically my approach for the next 6 weeks. What am I going to try and do creatively this summer? So the first thing was actually grounding down on what are those questions that I'm really trying to get at? What are these things that are bugging me that I think I want to explore in this space? And I was reading Syllabus, I don't have it here, by Lynda. I was doing one of those pages, and it kind of prompted me to be this is the kind of energy that I want. This is the kind of energy I want to be able to bring in my day to day, into the way that I play with my child, into feeling passionate and inspired about things. So it felt really useful to sit and have those concrete questions, and I think I'm going to keep coming back to them. I also imagine I'm going to collect more questions, and I've sort of set up a place to collect those questions just to see what comes up, because part of, I think, exploring and experimenting and asking those questions is what you discover, the new questions that come up whilst you're trying to figure those out, that maybe get to the more minutiae of what you're trying to do. Then the next thing, and I think probably the core part of this, is going to be my playbook. And I've spoken on previous episodes about this idea of having a playbook that is just about free, fun play, putting things down, writing notes, making drawings, doing silly things, making a scrapbook, whatever it needs to be, just filling pages. So my goal is to fill this notebook over the next 6 weeks. And I've already started here. This is my first page. And I'm just trying to use it as a space to capture, like, that's my plan for the next 6 weeks. A place to capture what's going on, a place to capture those questions, a place to do exercises, and also have some daily rituals that I do as a way to try and ground down in those questions and see what I'm learning or discovering every day, or providing a space every day to capture a little bit of fun, to capture a little bit of insight. And I've split this, the idea of this playbook is it's going to be a mixture of rituals that I'm going to do. And I've decided to have a daily diary based on Lynda Barry's Syllabus, because actually that has been a big inspiration for this project, for this next 6 weeks. So I'm going to do her daily diary approach, which is basically a page split into 4, and the top left quadrant is 7 things you did. And then the top right is 7 things you saw. And then the bottom left is something you overheard someone say. And then the bottom right is a picture of something you saw. And the idea is the top 2 sections you dedicate 2.5 minutes each to. And then the bottom 2 seconds are literally 30 seconds. So it should be a really quick ritual. And that for me has been quite important, I think, because time maybe isn't on my side always in this. The next thing I want to do is a daily self-portrait, which I actually have to do today because I started technically today as day 1, and I haven't done a daily self-portrait yet. So I will do that. Maybe I'll do that later. And then basically just having a daily notebook ritual with my son. So my son started a notebook with his grandparents when they were visiting recently, and I'm going to take that notebook. And the goal is to spend 15 minutes a day together doing whatever we want to do on our notebooks. And maybe it's something we do together, maybe it's something we do separately, whether he's sticking or drawing or coloring or scribbling, or we're doing something silly with them. That's the goal. I think 15 minutes is ambitious, but you never know, we might have some days like that. So that's kind of my like daily ritual plan. Then I've decided to create kind of like a regular series, and I guess these are going to be pages that I fill out throughout the notebook. So a set of things I love pages, collecting colors I love, characters I love, smells I love, sounds I love, those types of things. A list of new questions that I collect, notes from play, like almost like those field notes of what did I discover in this session or in this day, or any little nuggets that come through. A nature item, trying to start to collect little nature items and draw them, because contact with nature I think is really important and kind of feels like it's a summer bucket list type thing for me. And then reading notes or book reports, because I'm hoping to get some reading done and just see what I pull out of that reading. And then once I have those kind of like daily things in regular series, then I'm going to pull a whole load of exercises, probably a lot of them from Syllabus. And if you haven't read Syllabus or you don't know what Syllabus is, some people compare it a little bit to the Artist Way in terms of it's got exercises and creative ideas in it, but it's completely different in terms of its setup. Like with the Artist Way, I feel like in theory you work through it week by week by week, whereas with Syllabus I feel like you can just open a page and do the exercise that's on that page, or just read it as a book of inspiration. So I'm going to be taking that with me and flipping through and doing a lot of the exercises that she suggests, because I think a lot of the goal is to get out of your own head and into the doing of the thing, which is something I realize is a big blocker for play for me, is that when I start to overthink and I'm trying to challenge myself to do things quickly. For example, like this podcast, I would usually plan a little bit more what I was going to say, but today I just did a scribble of what I wanted to say, and I'm going to talk through that and hope that that's enough, because really we're just chatting as friends, right? So I don't need to prepare that much. And if you're happy with that, amazing. If you're not happy with that, you can let me know. and be like, prepare. If you want my time, you need to prepare. That's completely fine. But this is going a little bit more improvised, I guess. And I think improvisation is a really important part of play for me. So hopefully even this feels playful. So yeah, I'm hoping those exercises in Syllabus really help to give me some playful moments, and I want to use that as a bit of a model, as kind of my field guide, but also maybe find different creative exercises or have ideas that come up. One thing I thought of that I would maybe quite like to do is to make up a new game every week and try and challenge myself to do an exercise like that, where I just create a new game, whether it's a word game or a drawing game or a physical game that we can play. And maybe it's a game that's focused towards adults, or maybe it's a game that's focused towards playing with my child, or maybe it's just a solo game that I can play by myself. But that idea of challenge a little bit of inventiveness in myself is something that I want to try. And just looking out, I guess, for other creative exercises and ideas. So if you have any ideas or any creative exercises that you've loved, or anything that you feel helps you get into play, I would love to hear them. I'm kind of building a little exercise list, so when I do have 10-15 minutes, half an hour, whatever, while my son is sleeping, to just dip in and do something, I really want to try doing that. And then the final part of it all is sources of inspiration. And I think this really kind of comes to that question that I was talking about earlier of how do I use play and playfulness to make new discoveries? And I think the big thing here is randomness. And so often I feel like you're drawn to the things you're drawn to and you just follow that, and that's great. But it can feel a little bit like you just go through the steps. And when you don't have the randomness, you don't tend to get that like glitch of like, oh, this thing, I can't do this with two hands. With this thing, when they come together, that's something entirely different, and I hadn't seen it like that before. So I want to try and find some more random sources of inspiration rather than necessarily curated for me. Which means, I think, stepping out of the algorithm, to be honest. It means stepping away from what is on my YouTube homepage, for example, or what is shown to me on social media platforms, and instead to follow a few different routes. And the first one is, I think I'm just going to pick a couple of my favorite podcasts, but actually ones that source themselves really well, or ones that provide really good sources, and then listen to the podcast maybe, but actually just go and take one of their sources and then go and engage with that source material at its base, rather than just their version or their reading of what they found from that source material. So that's one approach. Two, the library. Oh, the library. I have this memory of like library reading challenges during the summer, and I used to love them. I think one, the library is always cool and quiet, and that's quite a reassuring place to spend some time when you're an introvert. And two, there's just so much goodness in the library, because you don't know what's going to be sitting next to the book that you were looking for on the shelf, and maybe that one's more interesting to you, or in the recommended section. Like literally, I went to the library yesterday, and I picked up this, which I think is almost geared towards young adults, older teenagers, I don't know. But it really jumped out to me, and I felt like this strong pull, like 16-year-old me would have loved reading it. So I thought I would honour that. And it seems to have an ilk of this relationship between humans and nature. And I am going to try and pair read it, because that's the other piece of advice that I got, which I think is really great, of pairing a fiction book with a non-fiction book. So I'm going to try and pair it with Hospicing Modernity, which I will grab. Which is this book right here, which I got bought for my birthday by one of my friends, and see what that pairing does and what those books do when they're in conversation with each other. So I think there is an element of randomness there, which I'm excited about. And yeah, and then I think see what is recommended in Syllabus as reading material, as a sort of randomness. And I think Lynda Barry has a blog that I'm just going to go through. I think it's a Tumblr even, that I can just go through, and I'm just going to randomize and see what things jump out to me. And yeah, and then I'm going to ask a few people that I really like, that I'm really close to, what they've read recently that they've loved. And maybe they've got different taste to me. So that could be a way to get some fresh inspiration and new ideas. So that's my plan. I don't know how it's going to go. I want it, like, right now I'm visualizing it being amazing. And I think that's also something that I need to catch myself doing, because I often visualize the outcome so quickly and like imagine how it's all going to go and it's going to be great. And then it's very different to that. And I think this is the discovery piece of, like, if you know where you're going, how can you be in play? If you know what you're trying to create, how can you be playful? You go to the guided thing of like, oh, well, that was my inspiration, so I'm going to go that way, or I thought it would look and feel like this, so I need to push it to look and feel more like that, not this thing. And I actually think trying to step out of the knowing what it's going to be and expecting it to be a certain thing and projecting myself into future Lucie in September, who's like, oh, wow, we discovered all the answers to that play and we're filled with inspiration to go and put into work and the studio. And, you know, like, I've actually just worked out how to be an amazing mum all the time. And it's all very optimistic and lovely, but I just don't know where this is going to lead me. And I think that's the point. That's kind of what I need to get into this space, or to find a way to move away from knowing and being trapped in the knowing and doing the thing the most efficient way or the best way or the right way, and instead just do it and see what happens. So I am making, here's my day one book, and then a few thoughts and associations that I went into. So I'm building my playbook piece by piece, and hopefully over the next 6 weeks I'm going to fill that out. And I think probably the next podcast I will come back to will be a little bit of an update with how that's going, unless something else just sparks off and is super inspiring, and then maybe I'll do a podcast about that instead. But I would love to hear how you're approaching the summer. I would love to hear if you have any great creative exercises or things that have worked, like, I don't know, a drawing exercise that you do, or writing prompt that you have that you love, or anything that you do as kind of a doorway into play. I would really love to hear, because I want to experiment and explore as much as I can. And if you're a parent, if you have any tips of what's made you feel more playful when you're with your children, I would love to hear that as well. Please leave me stuff in the comments. That'd be great. And also, if anybody else is watching and reading this and wants to do something the same, then they can also pick up your ideas, because I think that's also the randomness, right? How great is it when we see a comment from a stranger on the internet that we're like, oh my God, this is exactly it, or what a great idea. So hopefully we can build a little bit of randomness or random inspiration in the comments. Again, reading, listening, watching, any of your recommendations, please send them my way. I am open to ideas, and I would love to hear how you're approaching the summer. If you're in summer, if you're in winter, you coming up for good winter holidays. How are you approaching the holiday? What is kind of on your bucket lists? What are you hoping to do? And any playful, fun ideas, please share. So thank you for listening. Thank you for putting up with the slightly sporadic nature of this. I really appreciate being able to sit down and chat to you about this, and I will probably share updates of how it's going, maybe on YouTube, maybe on Instagram as well. So you can find me at Lucie Lincoln if you want to follow along, or if you are going to do a similar challenge, I would love to hear. Is this a challenge? I don't even know if it's a challenge. A challenge feels like the wrong word, right? I think it's an exploration. I feel like we're putting on our backpacks, we're getting our compass. Are we actually getting a compass? Or are we throwing the compass away? Maybe we're throwing the compass away. Maybe we're just getting our backpacks. We're getting our notebooks. We're making sure we've got a really good snack, because snacking is important. Actually, I need to do snacks I love. I'm going to add that to the list. Snacks I love. Oh no, that's a red pen. I'm going to ruin the beautiful page with a red pen. Here, snacks I love. Grab a good snack and let's see what happens. Let the adventure begin. So I hope you have a wonderful next couple of weeks. I will see you soon. And in the meantime, happy growing. Am I at an angle? Is this wonky? It feels wonky. Oh my gosh, the background is such a mess, but that's fine, we're going with it. What I am doing, is that what I want to talk about?